The primary species of big fish for the coarse angler is, of course, the carp. Both mirror and common carp can add great weight to a match angler's bag for the day, and indeed, matches can often be won with a single fish. Other species would include bream, tench, and on the river, both chub and barbel. In this programme, I've picked some of Bob's best and bigger fish filmed over the last 10 years in order to pass on his invaluable wisdom in how to successfully hook and land bigger species on either rod and line or the pole. Bob Nudd, MBE and 4 times World Coarse Angling Champion, is without doubt the top choice of all UK anglers for his enlightening and entertaining approach to catching big fish in fresh water.
What a fabulous start. I've come here today. It's a little fishery right in the heart of the Fens. It's called Pisces. Pisces, and it's a holiday camp. You know, there's a caravan park. So if you stay at the camp, you actually get a chance to fish all the waters. And this lake here is called the Syndicate Pool. And what I wanted to do today was target the bigger fish of the pool. And this one is a big one, feels like a carp. So today I was going to use biggish baits, big pieces of luncheon meat. Oh, it's a good fish. Got heavy elastic. And already before I started, I cupped in a mixture of luncheon meat and pellets on the bottom, and then just started to loose feed a few pellets over. And this is second drop in with a big piece of luncheon meat, and I've hooked into this carp. It's a big fish too. Terrific fish. Just caught me in those reeds under there. Think I'll just have to add a couple of joints on here. Oh, it's out, it's pulled it out, I've pulled it out, it's all right. Just got to watch. I was a bit overconfident really. Beautiful fish to start with. Just caught a glimpse of it. It's a big mirror carp. Got a strong elastic in here, 14. But that was a terrific bite. The pole was wrenched out of my hand. Look at that elastic go. Really is flying. Beautiful fish, look at that. Whew. That is really going. What a great way to start. Look at that, beautiful big. Got him. First fish safely in the net. Look at that. Just a terrific fish. Try and pick it up and show it to you. But it's probably 5 pounds. Good idea if you can, when you're unhooking fish, is to actually take the fish, the hook out of the fish while it's still in the net, just to keep it safe and secure. Might need to use just hooked on the inside of the lip. What a fish though. Took a big piece of luncheon meat. I thought I'd start off bottom. It's very, very warm. I'm about a foot off bottom. Just show this to camera. Terrific fish, this one. Look at that for a fish. Beauty, 4-pounder, straight away. Go. Lovely fish. I'm feeding a mixture of luncheon meat and pellet, just cupping it in, so although it goes down and attracts the fish, it will also keep some fish on the bottom, draw fish into the peg, keep some on the bottom, some will come up, but like a good holding area for big fish. And I'm using some quite big pellets of meat on the hook, and I'm going to feed some of those. Now I've punched these pellets out, and the reason I've done this is because fish are used to eating normal pellets, so if you punch luncheon meat the same, you know, just bigger, they're used to eating something of that shape. Usually find it works well. So I'm having a mixture of luncheon meat in the cup, and I've got 3 mil, these are 3 mil pellets, fish meal, Vandenheim pellets. I've just soaked them a little bit, not for long, just to soften them up, make them more acceptable to the fish. And I'm going to cut that in. Again, I've caught a big fish, so I'm going to cut that in again in this holding area. I've picked a spot just against those far bank trees. It's a very, very warm day. I mean, this is mid-August, early August, mid-early August, and there, I'm going to cup it in. Make a little bit of noise when it goes in to attract the fish. And the whole lot will go down slowly, attracting fish into the swim. And that spot there is just slightly shaded today. It is very, very warm. I'm going to put another one in because these are a 200 millilitre cup, so it's a fair size cup. I can get a lot of bait in there. I'm going to put another one in, 2 of these. This fishery is incredible. There's a lot of fish in here, a lot of big fish as well, so you don't have to be worried about feeding them. There's also a lot of silverfish that are stealing the bait all the time. So to get something to the bottom, you have to put reasonable volumes of bait in. Just another one over there, same place. This is a beauty of a pole cup, the fact that you can feed in exactly the same place. I've got a far bank marker. I can tip that bait exactly where the last one went. 2 good cupfuls there. And then fish on it and just see what happens. I'll loose feed a little bit over the top as well. As I said, these fish can take incredible volumes of feed. And at the moment, that last fish I caught up in the water, probably 18 inches off the bottom. If I'd have gone on the bottom, I'd have probably caught one as well. But I've got 2 rigs and we can go through those later on. But I think now we've fed, let's try and catch another fish. I'm also adding a little bit of loose feed over the top, just again with the 3 mil pellets to make a bit of noise to help attract the fish into the swim. I've got this sort of large piece of luncheon meat suspended off bottom, quite unnatural really, but you'll be amazed how many times you can catch fish by doing this. And the good thing is it deters the smaller fish. This is something that you have to do in this lake, just try and deter those smaller fish. And the fish has actually got hold of that as it's going down and left it. A little bit of a waiting game today because we're fishing for big fish, and usually when you start fishing it doesn't, I mean that was incredible to catch that one that quickly. Usually you have to feed a little bit and fish a little bit before things happen and make things happen. The usual thing that fishing is all about, feeding bait, feeding and attracting fish into your swim. We've got a good bed of feed on the bottom now, and now we're trying to attract fish in as well by loose feeding. And when you're fishing up in the water, it's necessary, you're really trying to catch fish on the drop, so it's necessary to lift your bait and then let it fall back in again. Let it fall back in, watch the float as it goes down. Quite often you get a bite as it's settling. And I can actually almost see the weight of that luncheon meat taken up on the float. Little fish peck at it, but usually when you get a bite from a big fish, it will be hooked immediately. just a matter of working away and getting fish into your peg. Big fish into your peg. I mean, if I put on 2 maggots now, that float would whistle away straight away with a roach or a rudd or a smaller fish. Plenty of indications that there are small fish there, definitely at the moment. This one feels like a bream. Not a big, oh, I don't know, it's just over a pound. So I'm just trying to target today these bigger fish. Oh, a lovely skimmer, about a pound. That's a beautiful little fish. Big baits for bigger fish. You know, that's important. Got a massive hook in its mouth. I'll unhook this one and then we'll run through the rig that I'm using and the elastic. There, beautiful bream. The elastic that I'm using for the mid-water rig is a number 14. I just want to run through with you exactly how I fix it. Now I've got a carp connector on the end. It's called a Preston Innovations, and it's called a Carp Extra, a big one. You need a big connector with thick elastics to be able to tie it. So that is where you connect your main line to. And then I've got it running through, this is a top 2 carp kit. It's the same length as a normal top 3 section, but this section here is extra long. I've got a nice bush on the end here, which is an external bush. You have to use that to get, the elastic is so thick that the only thing you can use is this external bush to get the right diameter. It's a bull nose, Drennan bull nose, but the elastic slides over there really smoothly, smooth as silk, no abrasion at all. And then in the bottom, so I've got this through this top 2 kit. In the bottom here, I use this wire just to take it out. I've got an adjustable here. It's called an adjustable connector here on the bottom. And what it's got on there, it's a winder. And if I'm catching a lot of big fish, I can actually tighten this elastic up. If I'm catching slightly smaller ones, I can then slacken it off a bit so that the elastic is less tight. So for big fish next to snags or anything, I tighten it right up, or else I can loosen it off. And there's loads of spare elastic on there. And that just hooks out with this wire, just goes in, hooks out. But they're great because once you've put your elastic through, sometimes, you know, when you're fishing, you start fishing and it's hanging out, you can actually tighten it up, you know, while you're actually fishing with this adjustable plug there. So that plug goes in. You must make sure that you cut that plug to length so it goes up inside the pole, so that when you push the other section on, it doesn't catch onto it. So it has to go up far enough into the pole, probably something like 5 or 6 inches. And that's it, and then you can adjust it all to length. So on that one, I've got a 14 elastic, and my other rig, I've got a 16, so just a slightly heavier one for fishing on the bottom, but everything else is the same. Feels like another one of these bream. There seems to be plenty of them down there, but the carp probably might be too warm for them to be feeding. Look at that elastic. Oh no, this is not a bream. This could be, but that elastic is miles too strong anyway. But it's another quality fish. Caught a glimpse of it just then. I thought it might have been a tench. It just does seem to be fighting a bit harder than a bream. Oh yeah. Yes, it is. Just caught a glimpse of it then. It's a lovely tench. Once again on that pellet on the bottom on the feed, so you wouldn't expect tench to be feeding these sort of fish in the middle of the day, would you? Look at that. But this gear I've got on is so strong. Look at that. probably a £3 tench that, and it stood no chance whatsoever. I was having a great time targeting these fish. There. Perfectly hooked again, look at that. Just hooked in the side. Probably, yeah, £2.5, I should think, but a lovely fish. I'm here today on a beautiful stretch of the River Wye, just below Ross-on-Wye, and there's a barbel hole across on the other side of the river, so I was going to fish a big feeder into the barbel, chub, anything, so hopefully later on catch some big fish. But we've got a bad forecast today, but it seems okay at the moment. The wind's whistling a bit, but it really is a wonderful looking stretch of river. And what I've done to start the session is I've thrown the feeder out about 20 times, no hook on, no bait, but just keep throwing it out where I'm going to fish, get some bait down there. A mixture of sort of hemp and caster. Get this back in. Across the river, just a mixture of hemp and caster in the feeder. So it's lying on the bottom waiting for these sort of barbel and chub to come up. It will lay, the hemp in particular will lay pretty still. Casters will move a bit in a flowing river, but hemp and casters. And I've got a basic feeder rig, and I'll run through that in a minute with you, but it's a good way to fish for quality fish. And I'm putting they like casters on this river, so I'm putting 4 casters on the hook. Just threading them on. And then in the feeder I've got a mixture, just a mixture of caster and hemp. So put some caster in first, just tuck that into the feeder, a little bit of hemp on top. I'm actually putting a maggot in there to make sure that feeder lid is staying tight, just to clip that in. Just jamming it in, keep that tight. Then throwing across to the far side, 4 casters on the hook. And you have to wait for a bite, but you want the feeder, you want it to keep going in fairly regularly, to keep a feed pattern going in. Lovely, spot on that one. And then as the feeder hits the bottom, I'm paying out some line, a little bit of line, just paying it out to put a bow. Create a bow in the line. And what this does, it means that you need less weight to hold bottom. The actual line will give a little bit. If you tighten up to it straight away, you'll find that you'll need to fish a much heavier feeder to hold bottom. And the actual bite, when you get it, will be what we call a drop back. The actual fish bangs down on the bait, and with the actual ferocity of the bite, it will move the feeder and the tip will fly back. Sometimes the feeder will move just on its own, and in that case the tip just moves back. When you get a bite, it will go down and then back again and be a more sort of violent action. But what you have to do is it's the same really as float fishing. You have to keep working at what you're doing. All the time you have to be only so long out there, say 3 or 4 minutes, waiting for the bite. If it doesn't come, and you know that you sort of think the feeder's going to empty, there's only caster and hemp in there, so it's the flow of the water will push that bait out. Once you think it's out and gone, then you need to come back in and refeed. All fish, particularly big fish, they can eat an enormous quantity of feed, so you need to keep baiting up all the time. And the idea is, of course, your hook bait is lying below your feeder, and the actual casters and hemp are trickling out and going down towards your hook bait. The fish then will be picking away at this hook bait, and then yours is in amongst it as the free offerings are going through and they grab hold of it. That's the idea of feeder fishing. And usually on this sort of river, on the Wye, you you will catch your better quality fish fishing this style. You just leave it out there a little bit longer. And now and again you can actually move the feeder. You can actually pick your rod up, just move the feeder, and it'll empty a little bit of more feed out. And quite often you then get a wallop, a big bite when you do that. But as I said, it's exactly the same as float fishing. You have to keep working and working at it all the time. In and then out, reel in and cast again. And you only need 1 or 2 big fish, you know, and that's been well worth it. You don't get a bite every cast, only unless you've got small chub in your peg, but if it's big fish you're after, you catch 1 or 2 and then you might scare them. There's a little bit of weed running through now, probably this rain is pushing down a bit. I actually had one of the casters smash them, but could be just a little fish or the impact of the feeder when it hits the water. So it's necessary, bait up, top up, cast out, and try and get in the same. I'm not using a line clip today because I'm feeding out a bow. Try to get in the same spot every time. And then you'll find the fish will eventually come onto your feed. And usually the harder you work, the more fish you'll catch. So all the time, I'm trying to get this feed in, trying to work it, paying out the line. As soon as the feeder hits the water, just let it hit the bottom and then pay out some line so you've got this good bow. And this means it will hold bottom much easier. What you want to do actually, I've got this feeder balanced. It's called a balanced feeder so that we get this drop back bite when the fish takes. Of course, it doesn't want to bounce along the bottom all the time. It wants to stay fairly still. But what I'm looking for is a feeder to be still, but as soon as a fish bangs it, for the feeder to actually move and lift. And all you have to do then when you get the bite is actually just pick up and lift into the fish. It's not a violent strike, but if you pick up, I'm using a long rod here, so if you pick up and you get straight into your fish, then you hook it quite easily. Really is terrific action. Mind you, it's a bit wild now. You'd think these conditions, most anglers would pack up and go home, wouldn't they? But it doesn't make any difference to the fish because they live in water. As long as you can stand it. I sometimes think they come on the feed more, you know, as it gets a bit more wild. And it is wild today. Lovely. And funny enough, we're here on the Wye today, but this sort of method that I'm using, which is block end feeder, you can virtually use that anywhere, you know, to catch and put a lot of pressure. This fish is still right on the far bank. You can virtually use this method anywhere, on the Thames, on the Trent, the Severn, you know, all those sort of rivers. The block end feeder will work on all these occasions. What you're doing is you're actually getting loose feed, not ground bait, but you're getting loose feed into a really tight area. And this is what helps you to catch these big specimen fish. Got to watch this fish carefully. Just below me, I've got a big bed of trees, so I've got to be careful. I'm going to try and bring the fish upstream, away from this big bed of trees. Fighting very hard though. Really feels like just like a big dead weight. Wonderful fishing. trying to snag me, this fish. Just downstream, down there. Now it's coming upstream. And honestly, the fight they give you is fantastic. I'm back winding now, ready. Like I said earlier, be ready. If that wants to pull, just let the fish run, let it take it. And it's sort of now, it's just laying across the current, trying to pull it as hard as I can. Look at that. If you look at that rod there now, it's almost bent double with the pressure of the fish. I've got it up on the surface. Lovely. She's, you know, just to catch one fish like this makes the day worthwhile. Block end feeder on the Wye. Fabulous, fabulous. Just so much pleasure. And you think you'd just be able to pull the fish in, but you can't. That is a big fish. That wants to go, and you have to let it go. When it wants to run, then you could just ease the fish up. Oh, that is a fabulous fish. Pull him upstream. You can just see him there below the surface. A little bit of weed around my feeder, but there it is. Oh, that is a beauty. That is a big, big barbel. This is proper fishing. I don't know how big this one is. This is a really good fish. It takes some time to get in too. He's going around by that tree again. Just keep him away from it. Come away, come away. Lots and lots of pressure. Gradually you get the fish up. Wonderful fighting fish. Let me get him round and up. You can see the feeder there, just above the surface. A little bit of weed on the line. I think it's just by the fish, but it won't hurt it. But look at that fish fighting. Incredible power. Actually, if you get them near the surface, then they can't snag you. But this one is such a big fish, such a hard fighting fish. Just out there now. You can just see the feeder coming to the surface. There's the fish just below it. But when it's in the current, look at that for a swirl. When it's in the current, that's the hard bit. You know, it actually turns in the current. The fish is so big and powerful. He's coming up here now, just in front of me. There it is. And he still wants to bore away. I thought I'd got that fish beat then, but no, it still wants to go. Every time I get it near the top, and I really am putting a lot of pressure on this fish, but oh, I can see now why people love to catch barbel. They are such an aggressive, hard fighting fish. They never give up. Never give up. There he is, right on the top now. He's nearly there. Still doesn't want to give up. Got him. Oh, that is a beauty. That is a big fish. Oh, must be 7 or 8 pounds, I should think, but oh, really is a fabulous fish. You know, as I said, just one fish like this makes the day worthwhile. That is a brute of a barbel. Let's see if I can show him to you. Oh, it's really strong as well, so I've got to be careful I don't drop him. But that is, if you look at that, that is one hell of a fish. That is a beauty, look at that. Just that one fish makes it all worthwhile. Just shows you how to catch them with the feeder, and then you end up with a beautiful hard fighting, and I should think it's never ever seen a hook in its life. Just such perfect condition. Probably 7 or 8 pounds. Right, I need to swap this tray round now because I always feed, especially when I'm fishing at sort of 10 metres, or 10 or 11 metres, I always feed ground bait with my right hand. So if you're feeding with your right hand, then you need to place the ground bait on your right hand. It's just easy, much easier to use. There you are, bait in there ready. I'm ready to go again. I put some casters in with the ground bait. So what I'm going to do is just feed a little ball of ground bait every cast. Instead of loose feeding like I was before, just going to put a little ball of ground bait every cast and see what happens. I'll start off feeding it soft and then see how the fish react to it. If they come, if the big fish come, then we can keep it at that. But if I get bitted out again with these small fish, then I'll have to start putting harder balls in. Right, let's have a look and see if ground bait's going to make any difference. Whether it's going to eliminate these small fish. I'm putting a softish ball in. Just throwing a softish ball at the float. Pull your float towards it. Oh, that's a better fish. I just slipped on double caster again. And I've missed 1 or 2 bites from small fish as usual. And obviously these big fish are moving into the casters. But the problem is, there's so many small fish there. I don't know what this is, probably a tench I should think. It's bigger than a crucian, definitely. But just that change to double caster's done this. That pole, look, see how it's bent. It's a nice fish, this one. Yeah. Don't think it's the big carp we've been looking for, but it's still a good fish. Should be a good tench. The elastic's really working hard, but I'm putting loads of pressure on it, loads of pressure on the fish. The pole up in the air, pulling back on it. It's a lovely big tench. Look at that beautiful fish, right on the top. Once you've got the fish on the top, try and keep it there. Doesn't matter how many times you have to unship your pole, try and keep its head up. Keep it there, keep it up in the air. Keep it up, keep its head up. I've got 2 sections on here. That's a beautiful tench, look at that, it's a lovely fish. Absolutely perfect condition. That's a lovely fish, 3 pounder at least, that one. That's a beauty. Look at that. Gorgeous fish. Just that switch to double caster that done that. Hook just inside its mouth. But even that, did you see how easy it came in on that pole with that elastic? How much control you've got over the fish. No fear of getting broken, but it's a good 3 pound fish. Look at the slime it leaves up the line. Make sure that you clear all this slime off your line. Look at it. If that's left on there, you won't get another bite. So you have to take the effort to scrape that slime off. With all that slime on the line, the fish recognise it. It's like an extra thick line. You imagine we use very fine lines. If you've got this lumps of slime on your line, they can see that as a direct mark in the water, so they avoid it. They can actually see it. We use thin lines so the fish can't see it. Let's try that again, double caster. That seemed to work. Oh, another better fish. Now this ground bait definitely seems to be working. Also what I've done is, because I'm getting pestered with those little tiny fish, I've pulled the shot down on that space shot rig. I've pulled them down closer to the hook so that we can try and get through the little fish. And double caster on as a bait now, that seems to be working better also for the quality fish. It's quite a reasonable one, a tench this I think, quite a big fish, might even be a carp. But it's certainly Certainly putting up a good fight. Keeping the pole up in the air, look, letting the elastic do the job. Keeping the pole right up in the air, right up in the air. See the elastic doing the job, but keeping pressure on the fish all the time. Keeping tension and pressure on it. As I said before, don't worry about where you unship these joints. Unship them anywhere, just for comfort. And this length would probably be about right for netting this fish because it's quite a good one. Still loads of pressure on it. It's not going to come in easy, this one. It's a nice fish. Try and get them to sort of come up and take a gulp of air. Try and look and see what you've actually got on, so you know what to do with it. Loads of pressure on it. Loads of pressure. There. Straighten it. Oh, it's only a small one, not as big as I thought. Little baby tench. That fought well for a tiny tench. Look at that little tiny one. Perfect condition. Oh, slightly better fish again. Strange today. I've been trying to avoid small fish because they're a nuisance, but sometimes in matches, world championships, these small fish really, you pray for them. You pray even for a bite, and they can make all the difference. And we actually fish for them, fish for tiny fish, fish to catch lots of small fish. This looks like a nice tench. And match fishing is a bit different to pleasure fishing. Even here today, say that if there was a competition on this lake today, with lots of anglers around it all feeding, then you wouldn't get bothered with those little tiny fish. They'd be fed off very, very quickly. But because I'm the only one here basically fishing along this stretch, there it is, a lovely tench. I've got every fish virtually in the lake, every small fish on the surface in my peg, and it's really, really a nuisance. Now look at that one, took 2 red maggots. See the red maggots sticking out of its mouth? Look, all chewed up. Only a small tench, nice little tench, about 1.5 pounds. But a good fish. There. Still not what we're looking for, we still want a nice big carp. Match anglers mainly, main baits are maggot and caster. Sometimes bloodworm, but that's our main baits. It's what we fish with most of the time. Just hope those smaller fish have gone. Oh, another good fish. This feels like a much heavier fish. Is it? No, perhaps it's another tench again. Although it's a big fish, just a lot of weight on the line, a lot of sort of heavy weight. It's fighting really well. Certainly a big fish. Sort of big fish sometimes stay sort of low and deep, not roared off. Elastic's coming right out now. I think this is a carp. I think this is what we've been looking for. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is. See the way it's racing across the swim now? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. If it's a tench, it's a big one. Elastic. Let's have a look. Ooh, just saw it swirl in. I think it's a carp. Just sort of had one look at it and then it's gone roaring off again. It's a good fish. Fighting well, and it's just like dead weight really. Shipping back these sections carefully. Oh, just have another look. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, it's a carp. Good fish too. Must be 5 or 6 pounds that. Beautiful fish. Here it comes, right on the top now. Yes, a beautiful carp. Look at that. That's what we've been looking for all day long. A beautiful fish. See how easy though the elastic still cope with this. The elastic through 3 sections, strong elastic. So as long as the line, the elastic and everything is balanced, as long as the tackle's balanced, you can land these big fish. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll show you how to prepare punched luncheon meat and then go back on the bottom and try and target some of those larger fish. The meat I'm using today has been specially developed for fishing. You can't eat it. You know, when you're out fishing, if you're a bit hungry, you can't eat this stuff. This is a specially flavoured one. It's for fishing only. It's Vandenine and it's called sweet meat, this one. Which I like to use. You know, sweet things are sometimes good in the summer. And I've used a big punch. I've got several different size punches, but the first thing to do is cut this meat up so that you can punch it. And if you're using a reasonable size punch, which I am, then I usually cut this meat into sort of 3 separate pieces. So one, and then just slice the other one. They don't have to be exactly the same sizes. The thing about this meat is it's harder and tougher than the normal commercial sort of type meat that you'd get, or the edible meat that you'd get in a supermarket. Now there's the punch, good size punch. And what I do is I actually punch this out. This is the stuff that I'm going to use on the hook. So you can punch this out. One. As you punch the next one, look, it pushes that one out. So I just don't worry, I sort of just keep punching. Usually with this one I'm getting 3 across, look. Just keep punching these out like that. As many as you want. I won't do them all because it takes up a load of camera time, but these are just a lovely, good sized piece, a slug of meat. And it is, if you look at it, it is the shape of a pellet, but of course much larger. So that will target the bigger fish. Then when you've finished that, you get a piece with all little holes in it. You can chop that up. Don't waste anything. Just chop all that up finely and then feed it in your pole cup. So you can use every little bit of meat that you've got. But these are really fairly hard, firm slugs of meat. Try to keep them out of the sun because sunlight can affect them. But they're fairly hard, sort of, if you look at them, fairly hard slugs of meat. I'm going to punch some slightly smaller ones as well so that I can chop and change. You can actually cut these in half as well. You do loads of things to it, but they are perfect for the fish to take. You know, nice and round. You imagine that going into the fish's mouth. The shape of it, you know, they suck it in easier, much easier than a square piece. It just goes in easier and it will catch you more fish. So a good pellet punch. There it is there. This one's a fox punch. Just punch out as many as you can. Doesn't take any time at all. You can punch out loads out of that one tin, probably enough for a day, and then just slice it up and you're ready to fish. And I think we're ready to go and catch the big fish. You know, it's incredible that I sort of went out with one of those big pieces of luncheon meat that I was punching out, Not right on the bottom, just off bottom, even though I've fed on the bottom. And look at this, cracking rudd. You wouldn't even think they'd take big lumps of luncheon meat, would you? Oh, that's a beauty. I'm going to have to net this one. It's probably 12 ounces, that. Just that big piece of luncheon meat. When you look at their mouths, you think, well, how could that get that big piece of luncheon meat in there? Look at that. This was intended for a carp. The big rudd took it instead. Beautiful fish again. Just shows you, so it doesn't, luncheon meat is good, but these bigger silverfish will still take it. They will eat anything. Gorgeous fish. Let me show you how I actually hook this luncheon meat on, because it is quite important. Now, I've kept the meat in the shade today, the sun's shining, so I've just kept it in my cool box with an ice pack in there. Meat can actually melt, this luncheon meat can actually melt if there's too much sunlight, and it dries out a bit. So I've got the pellet of meat there, and I actually put the hook through the middle of it, so it sort of balances it. So put the hook, you can actually, because it's round, you can actually put the hook in and sort of threadle the hook round. So it hangs. Can you imagine that? If you drop it in the water, that's exactly how it hangs. It's perfectly natural as it floats down, with just a little part of the shank showing. Fish will grab hold of that, and of course, you hook them every time. But that's a nice, even way to put meat on the hook, so it drops slowly through the water, but exactly at that pellet-shaped angle. Oh, it's a lovely rudd, that. Beautiful rudd, that, on meat up in the water. It's not what I was after. I was after bigger fish than that, but I say up in the water, I'm now probably only about, this swims 5.5 foot deep. So I'm probably about 18 inches, 12 or 18 inches off the bottom. And I'm getting lots of little digs, but I'm trying to leave those. You see when the float bangs, and trying to leave those and look for a real positive bite. When a carp takes, it will actually pull the elastic out with the power that it takes. So all those little digs are to be ignored, and a little bit of loose feed. And you'll see this encourages the small fish round, but a little bit of loose feed round the float. And immediately, can you see those silverfish? It's incredible how many there are there. And that's the problem. They're the ones that you have to sort of get through those, but they're right in the top, say 12 inches of water. And hopefully when you do that, the actions of those smaller fish flying up attracts the bigger fish below, and that's what you're hoping to catch. But they're a bit crafty as well, and in this heat, I don't always want to feed as readily as at sort of early morning or late evening. So that was a bit more positive bite. The float just popped down a bit. Still no striking. Every now and again you need to check your bait. Just lift up, check you've got your bait, and my bait's hanging there. See it hanging in the middle there perfectly. Drop it back in. And that's when you can sometimes, if it really whizzes off, be a big fish. If it goes off slowly, that went off slowly, then that would have been a small fish. Or maybe a bream. Sometimes bream take it. I struck at that one and missed it. So it would have probably been a small fish that couldn't actually get that bait in its mouth. Great fun though, I mean lots and lots of bites. Just a matter of sorting out the larger fish. You've got to be careful with this luncheon meat, because if you can see when I showed you the float, I was using a real thick bristle. That enables you to use heavier baits, like say a big piece of luncheon meat. If it's too heavy, if you've got a fine bristle on your float, it will actually just take it under. Even this one, you sort of have to almost undershot the float. So, and then you'll see the luncheon meat take up, and it'll just take the bait down. You can actually tell when the bait's gone because the float comes up a little bit in the water. So it's a matter of just feeding, trying to, there's an odd big fish moving right under those trees. In the rushes as well, you can hear fish. You know, these big carp, you can hear them crashing about. Doesn't always mean to say they're feeding though. And I can see the silver, even though this water is very well coloured, as I feed, I can see the silver flashing of the roach and the rudd just below the surface. But as I said, that activity does encourage bigger fish to come in. And lifting the bait and dropping it through that. But there is a chance that, like just a little while ago, that a big rudd or a big roach will take it. It's quite a small fish. Well, it's probably a 4-ounce fish, but it just shows you. Probably 4 or 5 ounce, I call it a small fish. It's not a bad fish really. But just about lift this one. Probably 4 or 5 ounces. Perfect condition. Perfectly hooked. How did they get that big lump of luncheon meat in his mouth? Probably at the moment there's, when the big carp move in or the big fish move in, they will push those smaller fish out. You know, they're gone. So you just have to, that really tells you when the big fish are there. When you stop getting bites from those smaller fish, it's usually when the larger carp have arrived. And that's what you have to do, keep feeding, feeding, feeding. Try and feed those off, get them out of the way. Because when they go, you know there'll be some big carp below them. This is a great fish to finish up on. Really went mad when I hooked it on a piece of luncheon meat. On the bottom though, I don't know what it is. Feels like a carp, but it could be a bream. Really fighting well. But amazing how that luncheon meat works. This is just a goodish bream. But just really fighting well. Maybe a small carp. Might be just a, no, it's a small carp. Do you know what? I thought it was a bream the way it was whizzing around, but it is. Say a small carp is probably about 3 pounds. Lovely fish to finish up on, whizzing about all over the place. Actually took as I dropped the bait in. I don't know how it managed to get through all those other little fish. Beautiful mirror carp. Probably is 3 or 4 pounds. The thing is, I've got proper gear on. Proper gear on to actually land it. Look at that. Probably about similar to the fish I started off with today. Probably a similar size. Different type of... Come on, let's get him in the net. Oh, beautiful fish. That's a great one to finish up on. Do you know what? I bet it's over £4, that fish. Didn't think it was, just a little, it's more like a football, a really little round. Look at the shape of it. Just a little round, fat fish, only just hooked. When I hooked it, it went mad. Whizzed into those trees. Look at that. Lovely mirror carp, about £4, but a great fish to finish up on.